Uh, Welcome, esteemed panel. Construction equipment industry has seen a very tough time during COVID. With almost like it's in line with what the commercial vehicle industry or any other auto industry has witnessed. But unlike commercial vehicle industry, which is taking some time to reach the pre-COVID level, the construction equipment industry has seen some amazing time just post-COVID. The recovery was extremely sharp, and it was a time where the supply was so low, there was a supply-demand mismatch during quarter 3 or quarter 4 of FY or CY 2020. From that, in the last 12 to 18 months, we have seen at that time also there was supply-demand mismatch. At today also there is supply-demand mismatch, but there is a difference. At that time, supply was low, demand was high. Today, demand is low, supply is okay. So we are here to understand how things are for the industry at present, what are the trends, and what is our outlook for the next year. So I'd like to start the session with Mr. Shekhar and just wanted his inputs. What is the current situation and what could have been done to avoid this kind of imbalances that industry is seeing now? Over to you, sir.
Hello. Yeah, so in the last financial year, if we talk about, right, the industry actually has seen a bit of a growth, right? It's a 3% growth if you talk about the April to December numbers, right? However, the quarter 3 was surprisingly quite below the, everybody's expectation. And the industry actually, there was a degrowth in the industry by roughly 23%. Now, having said that, there were certain reasons, there were certain factors. Supply chain issues is an important factor behind that, right? While the concrete machinery segment and the materials processing segment did pretty well in quarter 3 as well, they actually grew. The road construction machinery, the earth moving construction equipment, and the material handling equipment, those sectors actually saw a degrowth, which led to a sharp decline in the quarter 3. But overall, I still believe that the demand side seems robust, right? With a lot of focus on the government, from the government on road construction, overall infrastructure development. I think the demand still remains robust. There's challenges, especially on the supply chain for the industry, which is a significant part, right? Of the degrowth in quarter 3. There are challenges some places on the cash flow with the large contractors, in terms of that is driving in some parts of the industry. But overall, I think it's a pretty good, I think, story for the next few years, 5 to 10 years horizon. And I think one change which has happened, I think, apart from the government giving a lot of impetus on the new road and infrastructure projects, I think it's also the general population which has now seen the benefits of, better infrastructure. So they are also driving their respective governments, their respective political figures to kind of invest in the infrastructure side, because now people have tasted the benefits of better connectivity, better roads, better infrastructure, better ports. So I think this is going to continue. Irrespective of the political situation in the country, I think the pace has taken ahead. And over the next few years' time, we should see good times to come for the capital equipment industry.
My next question is to Mr. Bajaj. In the current time, we have seen in the road segment, especially, there are some challenges in the execution side. The construction equipment industry is witnessing, especially on the road and construction segment, where you have also very strong presence. Things have not turned out the way it should have been from the NHI side, and they have taken a remedial measure. So the outlook will be pretty strong for the next 2 years. So how do you see the industry, especially on the road construction equipment segment? And what challenges are there still for the industry, and how do you see that that's getting overcome in the current time?
So morning all. Yeah, taking forward what Jaideep said, definitely if you look at the government plans and the funds they have allocated in the budget, it's definitely 35% more than the last year financial budget. But key is with the Ministry of Road Transport. So that remains a focus for all of us, be it NHI DCL, NHAI and ministry's own jobs. But when you look at the state perspective, I think except Maharashtra to some extent and Uttar Pradesh, other states don't have any programs on the neither state highways nor another thing. But one opportunity what states offer us is on rural roads, PMGSY, where also allocation has gone up, and it's typically 50% contribution comes from center and 50% state contribution. So having put this in umbrella together, there are a lot of challenges what industry is facing. If you look at today's bidding experiences or data, you find people bidding as low as 35% below the estimated cost of the project, TPC cost. So that definitely is a big question, because ultimately it gets transferred to the equipment supplier. So you cannot expect the same quality of equipment purchase from the people who have bidded minus 35%. They like to either cut corners or look at, I would say, cheaper options. So that will put pressure definitely on the bottom line of the respected, reputed, leaded equipment manufacturers. One, and second, I feel the cash flow is going to be a big challenge for these guys to arrange funds and execute the project on time. So these two challenges I think industry will face in time to come. That's from my side on the, both from the industry and CE contractors and CE manufacturers will face the same thing going forward, all this together. Yeah.
So from a cash flow perspective, like when the things goes down, the dealers also get impacted. So from here, I want to get a perspective from Mr. Anil. Like, how are the things for the dealers and the interim channel partners, and how are they surviving this tough time, and what is helping in them to navigate through this tough time?
If you look at the, coming back to the overall scenario, you're going to have short-term hiccups because the geopolitical situation is very volatile. You will see the finance rates going up, so the new equipment sale, there will be a bit of a, it will go up, go down. Now, as far as the dealers are concerned, it is the channel partners, if you look at their cash flows, it is always coming in, the money comes in from the after sales. And they will have to focus more and more on after sales service to, at least in the short term, the revenues are going to come from there. If you look at the margins, if you look at the volumes, they will be under pressure for some time. It will be a highly challenging time for the marketing people for the next 6 to 8 months, because these are very uncertain times. There'll be a huge volatility. You will see sudden spurts of sale, and you could see a downturn. And that's where the channel partners will have to focus more and more on the after-sale service. The differentiating factor in the times to come, in any case, is going to be the after-sale service, and that's what it is. It is going to be the key for them.
So from an OEM's perspective, Mr. Agnihotri, any view like how OEMs are helping out dealers to navigate through this tough time, because they are also your partner in your growth. So how OEMs are helping their dealer partners to overcome these challenges?
See the current, good morning all. First, maybe before I answer this question, I don't know how many are connected with the construction equipment industry, because this is more of a commercial this thing. So I wanted to give one kind of overview what a construction equipment industry look like. So currently construction equipment industry in India is around $6.5 billion industry. And we employ directly or indirectly around 3 million people. And we are globally number three globally after China and America. Maybe Japan and India is like spot jogging sometime here and there. So this is the kind of status where we are. And as Ashish rightly said, majority of suppliers, and I come from the excavator side, it's one of the product. Excavators and backhoe loaders are the major contributors to this industry. So our sale is majorly through dealers, and channel partners are the critical partner for us. Unfortunately, this COVID time plus the volatility of exchange, commodity and other things, they are putting a lot of pressure. Our industry, if I put around 85% of equipment in this industry are 50% localized. maybe as somebody was telling, maybe localization is not very high in this kind of industry because of lot of components are imported. So we are highly impacted by currency fluctuation, ocean freight fluctuation, and all those things. So there, the challenges are both way. Manufacturers as well as dealers, both are like in the same boat. So as Mr. Bhatia rightly said, maybe focus is on the after sales, and not only the straight after sales. There are customized and maybe some kind of innovative after sales solutions. So maybe, you know, a few years back it was more of a sale, support and forget it. Now it is not sale, support and forget it. It is like sale, support, maybe 7 years kind of contract, 5 years kind of contract, and where we, and not only the contract, it's like you acquire a customer, maintain the relationship with the customer, support the product, and maybe help him to sell the used equipment also. So those kind of channels where we and dealers both together, we possibly work together, we support each other. Maybe sometime like OEM as a, maybe the parent, as a parent partner kind of thing, we supported dealers for the inventory cost sharing, sometimes manpower sharing. So those kind of supports are there, but the situation for both manufacturer and dealer is the same. We are sailing in the same boat. So it's like that. It's like this was actually tough time for both. We can't say, you know, somebody is making money, somebody is losing. It's not 0-0 sum game kind of thing. It's like same boat for both.
Thank you, Mr. Agnihotri. But specifically, one thing that we all discuss about, and many people are interested here, one is the what you're talking about, dealer support. But we have seen through a very tough time during COVID. People were not able to go, and this is basically a purchase which is someone has to pursue and ask and push for that particular sales. Now, during COVID, I think the sales momentum could have been weak because of this, but we have seen an amazing recovery and amazing turnaround just post-COVID, which was very surprising and very encouraging also. So here I want Mr. Harpreet's view and everybody's view. What has happened post-COVID? How industry has recovered on the sales side? When I'm talking about digitalization here, I'm talking about 3 aspects. One is the customer acquisition, customer retention, and also on the customer servicing, basically after O&M thing. Because most of the players in the industry earns decent amount of profit from O&M and not from the actual sales. This is also true for commercial vehicle people also, who are also there. But here I will like to open this forum from Mr. Harpreet and to everybody else also then, that how industry has recovered and what kind of sales strategy changes that they have seen post-COVID.
Thanks, Ashish. It's a very interesting subject. In fact, we have been discussing with our people in the organization, and you know that things have changed a lot in the Indian industry. It's not an Indian industry everywhere post-COVID. And I'm telling you about exactly, I think all of the people who are sitting here, they must have been working for the last 25, 30 years. They might not have seen this kind of a transformation in this kind of a business. One is what happened during the COVID. I still remember it was very difficult for us to reach to the customers whom we have given our machines or the projects. So we were not left with any option but to interact with them over the digital media. So because, you know, in all the equipment, everyone is using advanced technology, but I think the people, even the customers at the site, they have not used those technologies for long, but this exactly, the COVID has taught us some different way to use this. Even and it was this kind of a digital transformation accelerated during the COVID period, and we could see a increased number of customers visiting the websites. There's a lot of remote sales meetings which were happening, and even in our organization we have created our live rooms, and then customers also understood the importance of interacting with the manufacturers or with the other few people over this digital media. Another thing, exactly what we have understood during this period, that normally, you know what happened, even the commodity prices have played a very important role in this. Today also we are facing that heat. Even in 2021, there was a drop in sales. It has happened because of this second wave. And after that, there was a surge. Then there was a challenge on the demand and supply. So what happened after that? So we were exactly having our supply chain was in a deep stress. So we were exactly thinking what to do. So then there's another subject which has brought the attention of all the manufacturers to have a focus on the indigenizing the machines or the projects in India. And because there was a lot of component factories in China or in another part of the world, they were closed. So we were having this kind of a challenge in getting the components out there. There was a challenge in the deliveries through the sea route. So a lot of a localization has happened in India with all the manufacturers. I think the people who are exactly the leading players in the industry, they are, I think more than 60-70% of exactly their components or the major assemblies have been localized. This is another thing. So, and what exactly the challenge, another challenge which exactly the industry has faced to do the forecast, doing an accurate forecast for exactly this kind of uncertain period. So I think still we are struggling with that, but it has improved the efficiency in the system in terms of using a technology. And also now what we see that there's another challenge because of the geopolitical issues on the commodity prices. As we know that this today, the metallurgical coal, which was at $250 per ton, now it's touching nearly more than $500 per ton. See the petrol, which is, or the crude oil. So where it is now, and I'm sure it's gonna go up in the coming months. So for industry now, the biggest challenge is to do the forecasting going forward. But another good thing which has happened, we know that in India also the capacity of the steel plants is gonna go up by the end of this year. This will take a bit of a time, but till then, the industry, there will be an impact on all the manufacturers. And and I can say with a lot of confidence, right now, if you ask anyone to forecast for the next 6 months, this is very difficult. This is very, very difficult. But still, we are trying to find our way out and trying to see that how we can exactly really be having a from a strategic point of view, now there's a lot of the new players who are coming into this market, or they're getting upgraded. They are exactly what we can see that now all the manufacturers, they have increased their coverage in the country. And also they are also trying to bring in the products which are exactly suitable for the mid-market players, because that's a segment which is going to be, because if I see that in India, what we have seen in the last 1 or 2 years, there are more than 40 to 50% new first-time buyers or the new players coming into this. So you just can't rely only on the existing players, because they go up and they are also going into the subcontracting mode. So you have to exactly be penetrating more into those new markets, and also be having a tailor-made kind of products which exactly they can afford. No, if you see the cost of acquisition for the client has gone up.
Your views on this post-COVID, from a sales strategy point of view, what has actually changed? How are you treating or connecting with your customer differently what was done earlier? And what is implication on the cost structure for the players?
Yeah, so I'll just quickly touch upon your last question also in terms of how the post-COVID, the demand has gone up, right? I think the demand was always there, right? There was a general perception that post-COVID, the demand for a lot of things have gone down, right? Hospitality sector, travel, right? Unlike that, the infra never stopped. Even in the COVID shutdowns and lockdowns, the focus of the government, probably the next big thing after medical focus, the spend on the medical infrastructure was the infra side. A lot of contractors use the time to finish jobs in the congested area. One of the big ways to provide employment for people who return from the big cities was to get them absorbed into the work which is being done on the roads, on the infrastructure side. So I think the government understood during the COVID time, also during the peak of COVID time, that this is a good opportunity to kind of speed up some of the infra projects. At the same time, I think this became one of the single largest employer of people of unskilled labor who lost their jobs and livelihoods in the big cities and towns. So I think, but probably the COVID period, the lockdown held back the customers because of the uncertainty in investing. Nobody knew what is going to happen next, so people scaled down their purchasing. And as things started to become clear that this is not the end of the world, I mean, there's going to be life beyond this 3 months, 4 months time, I think people started buying cycle again. And as we as manufacturers, right, what we did is that we also thought that this is the end of the world. We cut down all our supplies, right? We said, Mr. Supplier, don't send it to us, right? We don't need it. And so that was something which at that point of time, the disparity came in, probably going back to May, June, July. Of 2020, yeah, and that has still continued, right? So everybody scaled down, right? Everybody thought this is going to be the end, right? Everybody was trying to conserve cash, nobody invested, all the investment projects were put on hold in terms of the manufacturing capabilities, but the demand was already there, and that demand has never kind of stabilized. And what it has done, it has got, some artificial inflationary, issues, right? Steel, everybody saw an opportunity to increase the prices. Steel, rubber, everything which you talk about, which is used in our industry. So that went up. So I think that is something which has continued. And then obviously there have been COVID second wave, third wave, the war, you name it, and there have been multiple issues which has added to it. In terms of the change, I think I was reading somewhere that this COVID has accelerated the digital revolution. Some people are saying what would have happened in a normal world in the next 10 years' time in terms of digitization and digital acceptability has been all condensed into 6 months' time period, right? So you will see, you will never have imagined that you can have an order closed for $1 million by sitting on a screen, right? But then I think not only the OEMs, but the customers, the dealers, everybody in the value chain accepted that the digital is the way forward. And then thirdly, in terms of the cost of acquisition, my comments will slightly differ from Harpreet, that actually the cost of acquisition has come down, right? We have now realized that, you can still close a deal without traveling. You can still close a deal without people going and staying in a hotel for 2 nights and taking a flight, right? Although this is different for different businesses, different brands in terms of the different standing, right? And again, as Terex, we run different businesses in the market, different brands. There are different places in terms of the market share and the leadership position. So if you are an established player, it's easier for you to go and close a deal online because the customers know you, they have used your equipment, they have the faith in you, whether you sit face to face or you sit online or you could talk on the phone, it is easy. It is difficult, the cost of acquisition can be higher for brands, businesses, companies which are new to the market because a customer would not like to spend maybe even $100,000 or 50 lakhs rupees by just seeing you on the screen. So it varies between the brand to brand, situation to situation, but I think the established brands have been able to reduce their cost of customer acquisition. For the newer brands, it is much more difficult process.
Now my questions to Mr. Bajaj and Mr. Agnihotri. From a post customer acquisition, like after sales side, what changes you have seen which has actually helped you in customer stickiness and repeat buying for you in the construction equipment space? What kind of digitalization play you are seeing over there in terms of reducing overall maintenance cost for the customer, improving customer experience overall?
Yeah, taking forward what Jaideep said, one point, then we come to the subject. I would say the cost of acquisition of a customer has definitely gone down, but cost of putting a product together has gone up because they've been challenging in logistics. And during the COVID and post-COVID, logistic costs have almost gone up by 3 to 4 times. So while there could be some downside on customer acquisition, but has been a huge cost input to the product itself. So that has hit the bottom line of a lot of companies, and that remains a challenge even today. Digitalization, he talked about it, now taking forward. So, to be honest with you, the kind of industry we work in, construction equipment, not very organized, uh, we were happy with SAP, CRM, knowing big things and all things, but frankly, we were never engrossed or really into that. But this change really taught us how can we get connected and accept it better. This is going to stay here. So you have to accept or embrace the change. Now talking about how did we make a difference on the technological acceptance. So I'm sure every company in the world who are number one, number two leading players definitely have this technology embedded in the system, in their core. It's only a question of how and when you implement this. So same comes with Wittgen Group, we are part of John Deere. In fact, John Deere completely tweaked its strategy towards called Smart Industrial Developments, SID. And they decided to go completely digitalization with connected machines online, almost 5 years back when the new leadership took over. So that really helped us, Wittgen Group, we are part of John Deere now. And so we have this, connected machines, Vitos, Fleet View, Fleet Connect. So you can connect with the customers offsite. You can help them in, maintaining or repair the machine with the help of connected data. And it helps you to train them online. It helps you to cut down the cost of travel and also help the operator to understand how he should do, which wire to put on, which sector to check. So a lot of online things helped us. While it was done with the emergency of COVID, but now I think it's becoming a way of life. The travel has reduced drastically, as Jaideep said. So we are able to cater more customers within the same frame time using technology, connectivity, and definitely we have become more data driven and helps us as a market and customers to get more, aware about the products, services happening in the job site. So I would say overall, its connectivity is definitely helping, for sure.
Mr. Agnotri?
So quickly, just adding on to the points, because almost the industry everywhere, everybody in the industry is organizing. I mean, digital has been the way of life now after COVID, though it has started with the compulsion of COVID. Now, I would say not only from the manufacturer side, but from the user side also, so many things have been like, maybe in-process controls like highways, the compaction, the quality of compaction. So now you have in-process control, not only the post-process control, that is one. So maybe the user also understands that what exactly is happening on the ground, and you can give the kind of record that, okay, this is the kind of compaction, amplitude, frequency we have done. So you have digital record available. Then secondly, from the manufacturer and supplier side with the customer, obviously now the customer actually, construction equipment industry, a lot of young age or new age customers are coming. So this adoption of technology to them is like has become very easy now. Now they want to be in the control of everything. From the starting of maybe complaint resolution to complaint logging to the resolution, you can track it. You can track. Now the customers have more. In fact, after digitization, they have more power to tell the suppliers, the OEMs that, okay, see, this is your performance. Rather than we telling them, we used to tell, okay, my mean time to restore is this, my response time is this. Now they say that your response time is this. See the data. So it's like, this digital technology, in fact, has given more power to customers. And that's good. So they have made us more innovative. So we are thinking more innovatively how we can reduce it. And then it is also improving the satisfaction level to the customer, because they now know that where we are and what we are doing. So actually, though this all has started as a compulsion, now it is giving lot of freedom to us, lot of innovation to the whole industry, lot of innovative ideas are coming. As Mr. Jaideep was saying that maybe during COVID time, a lot of unskilled laborers were going back to their homes without job. So maybe many of us in the industry, we devise some kind of Facebook pages, LinkedIn pages, where the machine operators, they can log in. And then because infra projects are everywhere, so maybe somebody who was working maybe in Pune, he has gone to Bihar, he was employed by a customer in Bihar, and people in Bihar, they came to Pune, he was employed in Pune. It's like that. So we created those kind of platforms where maybe a lot of cross learning, lot of cross employment was generated. So a lot of digital actually now has become the way of life in our industry. And since our industry was majorly unorganized, so the change in this industry is now seen, visible change is very high in this industry.
Thank you, Mr. Agnihotri. Yeah.
One thing is what exactly they were talking about a cost of acquisition. I just want to just submit this point out here. It exactly depends on the usage of the machines, right? It's not only on the acquisition cost and you're putting your machines at your place. In the last 2 years, what has happened in the COVID period? If you see the usage of our machines, I know the people used to crush more than lakh ton in a month, almost pre-COVID. But after that, I've not seen people crushing more than 25,000 ton, be it any company, any manufacturer, or even for the bigger equipment when your machines are idle for long, and that too in this kind of an uncertain period. So it is going to hit all the manufacturers, all the businesses, because unless you use their machines, you exactly make your machines sweat, you'll not get the realization out of those machines. So that is what has happened in the last 2 years. So
that is taking me to the another question, which is another pain point for the industry, is, and it is my commercial vehicle friends will also appreciate, that whatever happens, the cost goes up, but the rentals don't go up. So here I would like Mr. Anil Ji, his views, because the rentals are not going up, and actually that is impacting the cash flows, which my other eminent panelists has also touched on. The cash flows at the customer levels are not so rosy, and that is also resulting in some pain points for the industry. So just what your view, where are we heading? The costs are going up, fuel prices are going up, the salaries are going up, but the rentals are not going up. Where are we heading?
See, it's a supply and a demand, but if you really look at it, there is no option but the rental rates have to go up. The cost of, one of the biggest factor is your fuel cost. The fuel cost is going to go up. Now, also, these are uncertain times. The finance rates will go up. They have to go up in the coming months. So you will see that there will be some, the demand for new equipment. People will be apprehensive. Financiers will also be a bit cautious when it comes down to the first-time buyers. So what will happen is that the demand for rental equipment will go up. There is going to be a higher utilization. The rental rates will have to go up. There's no other way the industry can sustain it at these levels of rental, because then the delinquencies are going to be very high. And what is now going to happen in the short term, especially with the geopolitical tension, that you will see that the demand for the new equipment, as I said earlier, is going to be very, is going to seesaw up and down so much, and it's going to be tough time for the marketing people and for the production to be balanced out. But on the other hand, the rental utilization is going to go up, the rental rates are going to go up, so you will see a bit of a sanity coming into the market in the short duration, which will be very beneficial for the industry in the long run.
Thank you, sir. The rentals will definitely go up. That's what because currently they are not viable. So they have to go up, definitely. But one thing that is already going up is commodities. So to take views, and I'm actually merging two questions here. I would like the panelist views on two specific things, because the commodity prices are going up and the demand remains lull. It directly hits your margin because the pricing flexibility is limited. So you have to take the impact on your margins, and how you can offset that is by localization. So first I will talk about localization, and then we will talk about the margins here. So what industry is doing, or what like your companies are doing to offset this kind of cost pressure and increase the localization level? Your views. I will start with Mr. Shekhar and then come to Mr. Harpit. Serial mode.
Right, as you rightly said, obviously the commodity prices have gone up, right, and there's a limit to which you can pass it on to the customers, because obviously the price increases on the commodity side is multiple times than what the market will accept, and there are reasons, because at the end customer finished product, the customers have got multiple options. as an OEM manufacturer, if you have a particular engine or a particular pump, it takes months of engineering work, R&D, testing, prototyping for you to change. The manufacturers are at the last end of the, wherein they have to take the hit, and you have to make that call as to how much the market is going to accept, how much, you have to absorb, and that hits the margin. Now, obviously, localization plays a key role in the current circumstances wherein the logistics rates are significantly high, right, But, the rate increases, the cost increases has been across the board. So if you buy Indian steel, I mean, even though it's all local, I mean, you're paying the same price percentage hike than what you pay for a US or a Chinese steel. So I think the only benefit is that you are not going to be hit double, that you are going to be hit by the commodity prices plus the freight, right? So localization in that matter is helping currently, that you are not, basically it's not a double whammy for you, that, cost plus the freight. The cost is exactly the same everywhere. In certain cases, I think the cost in certain of the commodities and items in a local market is slightly actually higher than it has gone in some parts. So it's a crazy times, right? There's no fixed rule, there is no fixed phenomenon that, okay, the steel has gone up by X percentage across the globe. It can go up by 20 here, it can go up by 40 somewhere else, and similarly it can, for different items it is there. So, but the localization only helps us in right now absorbing the cost of the freight, because the freight of the containers, right, is probably 5 to 6 times. We export a lot of machines. What we used to get for $4,000 earlier, the ocean freight is $24,000. You still won't get a container, right? That's the worst part. You pay 6 times. There are premium slots now by the shipping lines, by the freight forwarders, that if you pay additional $5,000 this month, you will be getting a container. So I think those things are putting everything out of sync, right? Localization does help to a certain extent, but it is in the current situation, it is not going to be the answer for every cost reduction activities, because it's up everywhere.
I think I'd like to add out here something more, that in the long run, the current geopolitical equations is going to make it more imperative for, it's not only for India, it's for most of the big economies that you will find. If we were talking about open economies earlier, today it will be more of, you're looking inward.
Yeah, inward.
And I think that's happened not only in India, it's in other places. And in the long run, you will find that more and more local content will be coming in, whether it's construction equipment or even anything else. Even in automobiles, we will be forced to do that.
I think a lot of that will depend upon, people not exporting the raw material out, right? Everybody would want to have the finished goods done in the country, right? But there will still be challenges, like if you don't have palladium or you don't have, silica, you won't be able to do mutton chips. But then, the countries will be looking and saying, do I export raw iron ore or do I export steel? I think that is what big change will happen, and that will also drive in more investment, more, focus on the industries, right? But there will be still limitations. You will not be able to do 100% within the country.
Yeah, so in currently globalized world, complete Atmanirbhar is very difficult. So I think that's a fair point. But Mr. Harpreet, just one question to you on this. From a OEM's point of view, how are they trying to overcome these challenges on the commodities, and how localization is helping them?
She's actually, Jaideep has covered a lot of points on this. I think there's a only solution exactly. Is a geopolitical tension is a one, but we have seen that this kind of a business, the infra business, is a very cyclic business. It will never go like this, because there's a lot of factors exactly, it could be elections, financial situation. So it will go up and it will come down, then it will again go up. It's a cyclic business. That's what we have seen in the last, even now, 15, 20 years. Solution to this is, ideal solution is a localization. I agree to that. This is one thing, but also it will help us in reducing a lead time also, be it from exactly Europe or from US or from China. Because when there is a surge in the market, I have seen all the manufacturers, be it a concrete equipment manufacturer or earth moving equipment manufacturer or the crusher manufacturers, they struggled to deliver equipment to the market. So when we have a localization, so our lead time will be reduced. And also our inventory management would be much better. And as we have been struggling on the margins, and also when exactly we know that sometimes we exactly go to market and ask a price which is not justifiable. We understand that, but we don't have any option. Once localization has happened, I think a lot of exactly these challenges would be addressed.
Very valid point. Yeah, so reduce lead time, and also actually it also reduced the forex exposure. So your forex volatility, I think, is crazy nowadays. Very difficult to predict how the things are. So I think that will also.
Ashish, another thing actually, as we are taking this subject of Atmanirbhar Bharat forward, so all the manufacturers in the country will make a lot of a foreign exchange when you are exactly making it as a global hub. When you are exactly, be it any company, when we are doing exactly making a global hub in India, we'll be doing a lot of exports. So it will attract a lot of a foreign exchange in the country.
Fair point. The another thing is almost 95% of construction equipments are financed. Financing is one of the very important part and parcel of the value chain. And we have seen in our own surveys that the financing, at least on the retail side, when on the equipment have slightly tightened in the recent time, the LTVs have gone up. So what kind of challenges the industry is facing, and how OEMs are overcoming it? Mr. Agnihotri, any thoughts on that?
Before I come to this point, I want to add something on the localization part. In our industry, kind of in the excavator market, the localization is almost at 50%, and it is at a stagnant kind of thing. So a lot of precision component like hydraulic pump, like control valve, like maybe sometimes cylinders, we can't find. Even if you make in India, you can't have economy of scale, because that kind of demand numbers are not there in the domestic market. So we need to export and compete with all those giants in the global market. So okay, it is maybe a good term to have localization, maybe, and then Atmanirbhar. But then again, you need to maybe compete against those global players across the country and maybe in the global market. So export will certainly be a good some kind of ease in doing this export for the component. Maybe the government should play a very important role here. Actually, they have very important role, so that these component manufacturers not only come to India, we make and the manufacturing cost is in control, and then maybe we can create that ecosystem where these components can be exported. So when this happens, then only these critical components like pump, motors can be, I think, made in India, and then we can get those kind of economy of scale.
Mr. Agnihotri, over the last 5 years, let's say, when you're talking about 2016, 5 years back, now in 2022, do you see, like, localization level has increased, right? Localization has increased. It has not increased to the expected level, what it was expected earlier, but it has definitely increased.
Yeah, localization has increased, but then there is a stagnation level coming now. Maybe it was 40%, we have gone to now 50%, maybe 55%. Going beyond 60% is becoming little challenging, because we are not able to get those kind of high precision, high components in India. I mean, at the cost. If at all somebody wants to make it, the cost is very high. So it is better to import those kind of component. And then even after this kind of ocean freight and maybe fluctuation in currency, we find those components maybe at a cheaper price.
Fair point, because once the volumes increases, the viability of local production will also improve. When we're talking about the global number 2 player, maybe over the next decade, I think definitely the localization level is expected to go up. We have many players over here who are tier 1 suppliers, so I think there is a lot of opportunity for them. And when OEMs are saying that they are not getting good products, I think you should pitch for your products and make it commercially viable for them. So on the financing side, your views on that?
Yeah, on financing point, actually 95% of construction equipment in India, on our kind of equipment, they are financed. So financiers are very important and critical part of the whole value chain. And financing today is majorly is like, maybe ownership kind of finance, you just hypothecation. So you buy a machine, hypothecate it to bank, and then it is financed. So maybe more kind of innovative product in financing should come, so that maybe a leasing kind of, or lease rental or something like that. So we keep talking good about it, but then today the reality is the share of business from these kind of product is only less than 5% in India. So in every finance forum, everybody talks about leasing, rental, this good solution, good points. But then the reality maybe maybe we need to introspect and look at things. What are the the challenges in those products, and as an industry, maybe the industry government together we need to work it out, and maybe have some kind of clear timelines, so that we can work on improving this share of business, which is not coming.
True. So basically, rental market is pretty large, but it's not organized. I think that's the major challenge today.
In today, maybe if I tell 60% or maybe more than 60% excavators are going to the rental customers. But this all rental, everybody is rental. He buys, he put it on rent. Everybody doesn't have work. So 60% is rental. But this need to be organized. Maybe some technology need to be. So here the technology is required. Here the technology is required. Maybe lot of startups and these ideas can come up maybe on the technology front.
Yeah, I think on the rental market, I think the one key thing is the ability to collect the money, right? And that is why I don't think so there are organized players in the market, because you will see all these mom and pop shops or small renter players. So he will give you out machines on rent in his area, wherein he knows he can collect the money, he can collect the rental, he can get the machine out if something happens, right? But there's no such company right now who can say, okay, I will have a reach across the country and I have the capability to either collect the money, rental money, or get the machines out. Because we have seen even in our industry, I've seen some of our dealers struggle to get the machines out. Forget about getting the payment, right? Your machine is stuck. So I think that until that whole ecosystem changes, wherein the customers get matured enough to accept that it's a rental machine and they need to pay on time, this industry is not going to grow. And that's the reason you see a lot of mushrooming of small companies in their respective areas of strength, wherein they have the power to get the rental money out as well as the machine out.
I completely agree on this. Reposition in the financing is
So adding what Jaideep and my colleague has said, this has become a big challenge at Intels. We at Wittgen have slightly helped the market, that we are now, as I said, we're trying to create rental hubs in each of the zones in India. So where we try to bring the technology products offered to market with the help of Wittgen and the customer together. So it becomes the rent come sale agreement with the customer later on. Now coming back to the financing part, I would say a lot of companies have their in-house or extended finance. So we, part of John Deere, also have a John Deere Finance, which actually was started for the tractors business, Jaideep. And now that facility gets extended to Wittgen products only. So, but we have seen that, the industry who need finance already have a finance. Customers who need a finance already have books ready for finance, but who actually need finance don't have books for finance. So retail strategy has worked. So our focus is largely working on retail with John Deere Finance. But here the problem is getting that margin money. We have seen that 5%, 10% typically is the issue. And the NPS on this retail has gone up. So that also has put some cautious thinking on the finance companies to go cautious on the retail market. Corporate finance, I don't think that's a big challenge or big concern.
Yeah, because rentals are not going up and utilization is also slightly modest. So overall cash flows are constant, and that is resulting in NPS going up. But as and when I think the things improve, asset utilization improves, and rentals, I think it's already at a very, very low level given the cost pressures that are there. So if they goes up, I think the things will go up.
So Ashish, that is basically a cash flow issue.
Yeah, cash flow issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I just like to add, it depends on the category of equipment. Now, if you look at cranes or look at reach stackers, which are very capital intensive, you will find rental companies which are fully organized, even who are listed on the stock market and having a pan-India presence. So it depends on the class of the equipment. It's not that in our industry there are not examples. There are many big companies who are not only in crane and they are expanding their asset class, because what is happening is they are now leveraging their presence all India in one asset class into other asset classes. But I'm not saying that it's going to happen in backhoes or in excavators. It will be for a very long time for mom and pop type.
you know that in India, what Jaideep has said, that market, still we are at a very early stage of this infrastructure sector. It's not a very matured market. When you see the markets in America or in Europe, which are very matured market, there you see a very successful rental players like United Rentals, even Ritchie Brother. They have the Caterpillar Rental is also through their various dealers. They have been very successful out there, but they are exactly bleeding out in this part because it's not a very matured market. As Anil has rightly said, when you give it to the matured customers or to the matured markets, there you'll be very successful. So I think this challenge would be there going forward. Definitely opportunity would be there with the plant hires, but also it will bring a lot of challenges.
Yeah, and apart from the maturity of the market, the legal system also should support. I mean, in the developed markets, you can go and get an injunction, get your machine out here. You can keep on fighting for 5 years before, and by the time you get an injunction, the machine can't even move, right? So I think, yeah, market maturity and the legal system maturity both needs to be there for the rental to be successful.
I'll give you just instance in actually our interaction with few financiers says that they can see the machine but they can't repossess it. Yeah. So that is a challenge. So it's a very tough thing to be in this market. And when they are saying they are organized player, where they are organized player, they are highly capital intensive and the entry barriers are very high. But even that who are listed or who are not listed, the numbers, again, the return on capital are pretty subdued for those players also. But they are there because of the legacy financial flexibility. But when you are talking about the smaller player, I think they are still, the cash flow is an issue, and when entry barriers are low, you will always have a fragmented market. So that will always remain. So backhoe excavators will always remain a fragmented market. And there is an opportunity for startups and new age players to venture and try to find a solution for that. Now, I will like to add and finally take views of the participants or from the panelists here from the way forward for the industry. Where are we heading for the CY22 or FY23? We are talking about, FY22 is largely over. We have seen the extended monsoon, COVID second wave, all things have impacted the execution. All things have impacted the execution, and which is actually, apart from supply chain issues, has also impacted the profitability. But from the growth perspective, next year, where are we heading? So, Mr. Jaideep, please.
Yeah, so I think, from a growth perspective, the demand is going to be there. I think that is in the near term, we can see that the demand is going to be there. People are largely, unless there's a very, strong COVID wave 4, I think the demand is going to remain there. But what is going to hamper the growth is going to be the supply chain, right? Although the demand is going to be there, we are not too sure whether we'll have enough raw material, enough logistic support to deliver what the market wants, right? So that is always going to be constrained. But as far as I believe that, overall demand from the industry, I think that's going to be strong. The mining is in the up cycle as of now. Mining, which is a much more highly cyclic than the construction equipment market. The mining is on a high as of now. It hopefully should remain next financial year as well. And then obviously the demand from the aggregate and the road construction side in the infra side is going to remain. But the challenge is going to be the logistics, getting the parts on time, whether we are able to price it properly, right? Whether some manufacturers decide it's better not to sell these particular models of machines than to make a loss, right? So those all challenges will be there. But I think the industry should still grow if the demands, the supply side doesn't deteriorate any further.
Mr. Bajaj, your views?
Definitely, I agree with Jaideep. Demand is going to go up, but I foresee the change in customers segment. The way today things are getting bidded, I feel that more and more new customers will enter the space, and there will be two challenges I foresee. One is meeting their expectations on deliveries, what Jaideep mentioned, and I also feel maybe the bottom line will get affected there because price inputs are going to go up, and those are sectors, customers, new sectors, they may not appreciate your leadership quality inputs, and we have to, I think there'll be challenge on the cost there, or pricing there.
So, notwithstanding the margin related pressure, you still see the volumes to go up in the next year?
See, definitely market will be up, demand will be up, volumes will go up. The market shift will change from strategic, super strategic to retail, and that's where other things will come up.
Yeah. Mr. Agnihotri, your views?
So, as everybody is saying, demand in long term will certainly be very good. This budget also talks about 25,000 kilometers of highway, 35 capital expenditure and all that. So demand in short term as well as in the long term is going to go up. There is no doubt on the demand perspective because India is infra deficit place and infrastructure, benefits of infrastructure everybody is seeing. In fact, we as an industry identified our vision 2030 kind of thing. ISEMA has created a report where they are talking about reaching number 2 position by 2030, and at that time the industry size will be around $24 billion. So that is the kind of...
Everything is rosy in the longer term, but when you talk about shorter term for the next 1 year,
even
what is your view?
Even in the short term, the kind of announcement finance ministry has done that, okay, 1.99 lakh crore for the NHAI and, Ministry of Roads and all. So these budget numbers are very good. So ultimately, machines will be required for this. The question will be on the supply side, as Mr. Jaideep told, because this supply chain could be a big problem because the ocean freight, currency fluctuation, commodity pricing, all these will hit somewhere on the bottom line or maybe on the supply, on the delivery commitment to the customers.
Mr. Harpreet, your views on the growth for next year?
Yes, somehow, if I want, and I fully agree with them. The demand will be there, and because looking at a union budget and also overall exactly the push by the government, but the challenges will be there on the pricing front, on the margins, and also the kind of new customers which are entering because they will take some time to get matured. So I think it would be somewhat around, there will be growth over the last year, but how much is, to be honest, is very difficult to predict right now, but definitely is going to be good time for the industry for next 2 years.
Forecasting for a construction vehicle and a construction equipment, both is a Herculean task, and nobody gets right on that. That's always a phenomenon.
But another good thing is in the last 2 months, they are planning to do 2,500 kilometers. That is pretty good. That shows a good recovery in terms of execution because the first quarter of Indian fiscal year had faced a challenge. That has somewhat recovered because it is not meeting a 1920 or 2021 exactly length, but it's looking good.
Basically, elections are also coming in 2 years down the line. So before elections, the infrastructure push will be there, and if push is there, then the construction demand will be definitely strong. So with this, I think I will open this forum for some questions from the participants, if there are any questions.
Good morning. I am Aditya from Curtis Wright. My question is, we talked about rentals, we talked about legal part of it, the challenge of getting the money back in the hands of manufacturer. One question from supply side is, do you think in these times the long-term agreements become important with the suppliers? Secondly, whether the general procurement agreements or purchase agreements need to be relooked and reviewed because of the changing scenario in the supply chain and the risk involved. So would that help share the risk and stabilize the industry better? Thank you.
Mr. Jaideep, you want to?
Right, I mean, from a long-term stability point of view, yes, as OEMs, most of the OEMs would prefer to have a long-term contract with the suppliers, right? But here what we have seen in the last 2 years' time, suppliers with whom we had long-term contracts have come back and said, look, this is not feasible anymore, right? There's a force majeure clause, the costs have gone up, this is a surcharge, right? So it works both ways, right? So the preference, yes, as the manufacturers will be to go for a long-term contract. But I think everything has gone haywire in the last 2 years' time because, I don't think so. A lot of the long-term contracts have been honored and everybody has been very quick to come out with the force majeure clause, right, in terms of the pricing, delivery, costs, surcharges. So that's where we stand. So I think very uncertain times, right? Preference, yes, will be there for the so with the supplier side. So we will, as a manufacturer, I'll be much more willing to work with a supplier who is willing to commit with me on a long-term perspective. But there are very few to find as of now, and nobody wants to take a loss. I mean, because if you keep yourself in the supplier's shoes, they are also being hit by the increase in the prices and the freight cost. Now it is questionable whether they are being hit by 5 and they are asking you 10, or they are being hit by 5 and they are asking you to cover those 5, right? Whereas on the OEM side, for sure, I think the OEMs are only trying to pass on their cost increases. It cannot be the same thing for all the suppliers, because there are a couple of suppliers, wherein we have seen that, it is just in line with the industry because everybody else is increasing, we also need to increase. So that's where we stand as of now.
Thank you.
So, adding to what Jaideep says, our view is that our relationship has become more committed with the vendors now during the last 2 years. So we understand them better now, because as he said that it was only a one-way traffic largely, but now we realize, boss, you can't have one-way traffic with their vendors. So we take them more seriously, because if they abandon you, you are actually on the road. So yes, they have come back to us, to all the companies back, and it has been retweaked and reworked. One thing is there, whether long-term or short-term commitment needs to be from both sides, so that actually works. So that's from my side.
Thank you, Mr. Shekhar, and thank you, Mr. Bajaj, for such a frank and candid answer. Yeah.
Actually, no. To be honest, we have a vendor system in place where you have an SAP or CRM, so you keep talking to them. So there are a lot of clauses which is subjected to the base price of commodities, steel or diesel. So there is also an indexation there. Certain goes up, then automatically goes up to that. But more or less, its system is in place. But then there are a lot of one-on-one meetings to understand and reset the terms. Yeah, and we all understand, right? Steel increase for everybody, right? So it has to be respected and accepted. Yeah. And I think equipment manufacturing industry has been very generous and genuine in passing on back to vendors here.
Hi. I'm Mohit Mehrotra. I represent Omnicom, which is into fuel monitoring sensors. I just wanted to understand from an OEM perspective, for a construction site, what is the breakup of costs and how do you see the core components, and how do you see that impacting in the next 2 years given all the supply cycle constraints that you're talking about?
No, if I understand your question correctly, you are trying to understand the breakup of the machine costs, right? Or
no, I'm looking at machine materials, fuel.
The maintenance part.
What's the stack of?
It is very different from machine to machine. I think people sitting here across the table are all representing almost different kind of machinery. So it will be hugely different for different machinery.
Jaideep, my question is not about machinery. I'm saying for a construction, road construction site, what's the stacking of costs, materials, machinery? Where does machinery play in that?
So the road construction, if you talk about only the road part, not the structure part of it, typically diesel contributes around 4%. The equipment per se is around 3.5 to 4%. There is other is your input material is almost 78 to 80%, and almost 6% goes with personal cost. That's people employment at the site here.
And so therefore, given the supply constraints, which of these are going to be impacted the most?
I think everything is impacted because the moment diesel goes up, your logistic goes up. 80% is your raw material, logistics, aggregates. So transportation of the aggregate goes up. Then there's the tippers who are transporting this, their cost goes up. So everything will go up.
Thank you.
Sir, we don't have time for any more questions, so I'll request you all to kindly take these conversations offline while we go for the next break. So with that, I'd like to thank the panel for being so kind and joining us. If you can join me in showing our gratitude to all the gentlemen on the stage.